Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by DJ Broome, new head basketball coach at Cal Poly Humboldt. That still sounds funny coming out of my mouth instead of Humboldt State University, which is where you attended school.
Yep.
We've been talking about getting you on back when you were an assistant, but now that you're the big dog, I'm pumped to have you here, Coach. Thanks for jumping on.
No, I appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, like you said.
Yeah, indeed. So let's go through the journey, man. Take us through the background all the way back to you were just a young buck running around the bleachers to how we've gotten to where we are now.
As far back as I can remember, always been a sports fanatic. So my dad was a young dad, so had me when they were 20. So he was like still super young as I was growing up, and we're outside in the backyard playing hoops and wiffle ball and the whole nine. And then I have a younger brother, 3 years younger than me, but only 2 grades. So he was my crash dummy and test dummy for everything as I started the journey of sport. But yeah, I was a baseball kid all throughout till my senior year of high school. That was the dream. Season tickets at the A's. We would chase autographs in Union Square in the summertime. So that was the dream and the plan. But I started to notice as I picked up hoop that it fit my personality better. I was more excited to go to practice and work on it. I think the pace was a big thing for me. Baseball got slow and monotonous. Yeah, I started playing in sixth grade. I made varsity as a sophomore, still planning to play baseball. And by the time I got to senior year and got the opportunity to walk on at Humboldt, the rest was history. And I never really looked back.
And then from there, where'd you go? So I played at Humboldt, however long you were there. What we accomplished while you were there during a really good run for the school, right? Where you got to play with Tyler and Kyle and some of these
Yep.
guys that it came through our realm. And then talk a little bit about that experience and then the steps after that led to where you are now.
Yeah. So you came here, and one of the biggest attractions to come into Humboldt State at the time was they played in front of packed crowds and the winning tradition. Me and Kyle both came in together as freshmen in 0809. We just opened the brand new arena, so brand new facility. I think at that point they were on 8 out of 9 regional appearances, and then we were super successful. I think me and K-Bax went 90 and 32 in our 4 years. We made 4 NCAA tournaments, won 3 championships. So yeah, we did a ton of winning. You played in front of people. The community was passionate, and then from there you get the crossroad of K-Bax and those guys end up continuing on to play. You're 5'5.5" point guard that can't shoot, and you go, what's next in the journey? So I never had intent to coach. People always told me they could see that in my future. I actually was really excited. I had more school to finish my 5th year, so I was pumped to be a regular student and no more. I have to be here at this time, and I have to work out, and I have to do this. And yeah, that didn't last very long. I think you're so used to the structure and the schedule that I started doing a lot of workouts and individuals with younger kids, which then led to some local AU stuff here, which then led to my first head coaching job, which was JV girls at Arcata High. Yeah, and the rest is history. So it's just kept going from there. And then I didn't like it initially. My first year coaching college, I came back to Humboldt State from the high school, coached a year, and was like, don't know if this is for me. Left, went back to high school, got a real job, was doing some property management, making at the time what I thought was real money. And I was like, yeah, this is it. But yeah, you just miss the game too much, and then had to get back in.
And from Humboldt as essentially a GA and a first-time assistant, where'd you go?
Yep.
Take me through all the steps until we
So
got
I
to
went I went from Humboldt to out of college. I went back to Humboldt for another year. Or no, sorry. I transitioned from out of college to Monterey Bay for a year. Came back to Humboldt, had a 4-month stint as the head coach at College of Redwoods for the women's team. Left there before the season started to be Coach Riscaldo's assistant at Sonoma State. So that was like my first head assistant job, full-time, benefits, the whole deal. Was there with him for 3 years. Transitioned from there to Academy of Art with Scott Waterman. Was there for another 3 years. And then took my biggest kind of gamble and risk and left Academy of Art home in the Bay to go to Missoula, Montana at the University of Montana with Trav and those guys, where I was for 4 years until I got this job. So that
perfect.
gets you down the whole road.
No, it does, and that's great because I forgot about the College of the Redwoods thing, and so that sets up the first question here that I usually lead with, right? Which is when you took over as the head coach, what did you realize right away that you needed to figure out? So you actually had a stint back, what is the math on that, 10 years ago now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now you're back into it. But what I'd love to hear, you work for some really successful people, obviously, and you're prepared, but we're never ready. So
Yeah.
in this initial transition over the last 4 months, essentially, like what have you realized right away that, damn, I thought I was ready, but these are the things I didn't even think about. And obviously tearing your Achilles isn't one of those, but like,
Yeah.
personally,
I think you just realize how much of the job is not about basketball. You always hear your bosses and your head coach talk about all the things you're doing. And as an assistant, as you get a pretty good workload, you look at this guy and I'm like, I don't feel like you're really doing that much. And then you get into the seat and I mean, from the head coach's meetings to the stuff you're asked to do across campus to budget to really planning everything for your entire roster and what you're going to delegate to your staff, and then dealing with the HR for hires and meeting with the boosters. So you just realize a very little percentage of this job is what we're going to run out there and how we're going to beat teams, as much as just managing the big picture and making sure this deal runs somewhat how it's supposed to as you're, like you say, you're learning on the fly. But I do think like envisioning being here and how it would be and how you would do things has really helped in the transition of, okay, just because it's the first time I'm doing it, it's not the first time I thought about it, which has been beneficial for sure.
what would you say you've carried with you from that first stint at the College of the Redwoods that has made the transition easier?
I think you're lucky in the sense that College Redwoods and now Cal Poly Humboldt are in the same community. So obviously that is the backbone and foundation of this deal. They're passionate, they care about the sports, they want you to recruit local. So you just are familiar with all of the ties and who's going to be involved and who's in the community that have helped the tradition and the people you got to go shake hands with and introduce your assistants with and make sure your players are familiar with, to just make sure, like I said, this thing is going to run smoothly and go how it's supposed to go.
What have you already fumbled on, let's say, that was a good learning opportunity as you slid into this, right? Thinking, okay, here's how I'm going to do this, here's how I'm going to do this, and it just blew up. Oh, that wasn't it. Let me retrench.
Uh, I think the first thing was our scholarship number. So you get here, we had one walk on returning, and then there was one returning player from last year who was injured that came back out of the portal. So you got two guys. That's it. I got to fill a roster. I have the pamphlet that they gave me in my interview that says this how much scholarship money you have. And that's kind of what me and my assistant are working off of. And as it gets closer, you start to really get down to nickel and diamond and the last couple roster spots. I finally go in and go, let me make sure this is right. And it was not right. So you just are like, the war board just had to just wipe and start all over. Now, luckily, I will say it was more than I thought we had. And if it had not been, that could have been really disastrous. But I've learned just ask too many questions because I'd rather have answers than be guessing and trying to figure it out on the back end. But yeah, that was the first like eye-opening moment of that could have been really bad if it was the other way around.
Yeah, no doubt. How would you say you have adapted, let's say, right, coming from U of M, where I'm not going to say you have unlimited resources by any means, but the sport is fully funded, right? And
Yep,
you have discretionary revenue to do other things with, to
100%.
being at a place where it's bootstrapped together, not based on being Cal Poly Humboldt, but in general, Division II athletics are not funded the same way that even programs in the Big Sky are in Division I. Talk a little bit about that shift, that difference, right? How different the
Yep.
landscape is and what you're doing to, I don't want to say backfill, but really to make up for the areas where you can't do what you once did.
Yeah. I think I'll start with we're really fortunate in what our facilities look like and how nice they are. So I think as you come in as a student athlete, you're appreciated and impressed by those. And I'm trying to move with the times. So I'm like, this is the dollars we have. We have to travel. We have to have gear. We have to eat. We have to recruit. So you're really trying to dictate what's most important, where we can get the athletes the best experience possible with still making sure we're doing the best job we can. I want to make sure we have nice gear because that's what the guys care about. I want to make sure, like I said, the shoes and all that stuff is taken care of and we travel as best as possible. And I think where I have tried to get creative and move with the times is in recruiting. It used to be like, at UN, okay, hop on the flight, get a hotel, go wherever you want to go see this kid. Now I'm doing a lot more film breakdown, call a coach, Zoom with the kid, try to be cost efficient, drive wherever I can, crash on my mom's couch, and you just stack those days up, and hopefully on the back end that leaves room for another sweatsuit or pair of KDs or whatever it may be. But yeah, you just got to be smart. And I think I've learned too, and everyone's, oh, you got this big raise and all of that. And yeah, it's not really that, especially when you're paying. This will be the first month I'm not paying double rent. You don't think about the things of, oh, I'm just going to move in the middle of a lease or those type of stuff. So yeah, you're learning a lot about budgeting, both in the athletic side and my personal life at the same time, which has been good.
Yeah, and I think some of those lessons get passed along to the athletes in some capacity, maybe not verbatim, but to what you just said, right? Where you jump on a plane and you go see a kid and you don't have the luxury to do that. And so you're looking at your total budget number and make it up, it's $100 and your projected spend is 120. It's like where are the levers that you can pull to reduce some of those expenditures?
Yep,
Right? Either you
100%.
got to generate revenue or you got to reduce expenses. Where have you found some things that maybe you did at Montana that you think are super important to the program, but you got to find a different way to do it because you don't have the resources that you might have had there?
I think really all of it, recruiting, scouting, the whole deal. At Montana, it's okay, we're going to have just play, and the scouts going to go to the guys' phones, and that's how we're going to do it. We're going to have synergy and sports code to break down stuff because we like synergy for these reasons and we like sports code for that reason. When you don't like the basketballs and the condition of them, we order 10 more of them. And so it's really being detailed with the little things and trying to get these guys to understand they're trying to pay it forward as well. So the better they take care of stuff and the next generation of athletes gets to benefit from it. Things as silly as we are only going to use old basketballs in the gun to try to keep the new basketballs new for as long as possible. Like just little stuff like that that really matters for us because I can't go get new basketballs every 3 months. Where you were coming from, it obviously wasn't as big of an issue. You just had to get done what was going to put us in the best chance to win a championship, and that was all that really mattered. So yeah, I mean, it's different, but there are also some similarities. Like super supportive community. You learned a lot about kind of outreach and fundraising and generating revenue. So we're bringing a lot of that here as well to try to make this job as successful as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's the mission, right? It's like, how do you make the big time where you're at, even if you don't necessarily have the big time resources? And
Yep.
unfortunately, right, or fortunately enough, each job is unique, and you have to figure out how to paint within the lines of that particular place. And I think that's where the real challenge comes from, right? And you
Yep.
mentioned how much of this job isn't actually about basketball. And Rich and I always joke about 85% of your job has nothing to do with basketball at all. And
100%.
the better, the quicker you can embrace that, the happier you are because you're not feeling like there's something missing, right? So
Yep.
give me another example of something you feel that maybe you were caught by surprise with, but that you feel like you navigated really well. Not necessarily having the experience in it, but like you came out the other side like, oh, wow, I learned a ton there and I found a new solution to something I wouldn't have thought about without this particular constraint.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I would have to say hiring an assistant. This is the first job where you had a somewhat desirable salary to where multiple people would have interest and want the job. Obviously, I'm super fortunate. I made great friends while I was here. Obviously, TB is one of them who you know very well. And as you get the job, that becomes the first question is who are you hiring? And I feel super fortunate that like people, if you asked a bunch of people, they would say, oh, he's going to hire TB. Do I think this was necessarily the right move at the right time with everything going on in his life and my life? I didn't, but I also felt the support from him and guys like Brandon Sperling, and to be like, what do you need from an assistant as a first time head coach that's gonna cover up some of your weaknesses and be the perfect teammate for you to transition. And I was able to do that. I hired John CB, who was at Cal State Monterey Bay, and he's exactly that. But I feel very fortunate because I think there's a lot of times where the TB in someone's life would have just been like, no, I want the job, and put a bunch of pressure on me to do that. And now you're juggling lifelong friendship versus work relation, the whole deal. I think the hiring process and how I went about that was a learning experience, but it was really positive, the outcome.
But that's part of leadership, right?
Yep.
Ultimately, figuring out how to keep the main thing and to be transparent about those decisions. And
Yep.
it's similar to, we want to talk about Tyler, is when my job opened up here, it was like, I'm not talking to you about this. And it's, huh? I'm like, no, it's going to take you off a path of some things that you might have in front of you if you stay where you're at. And I think ultimately, when you're able to have those conversations and you've got the main thing for your program in mind and the main thing for those that are important to you that they might not see, it allows you to navigate those a little bit better. How would you say you're processing as you go into this season, right? And you said you visualize some things, you think you know what you're going to do, and here's how we're going to play, and this, that, and the other thing in regards to philosophy. How has that evolved already versus what you thought? And the reason I'm asking this is part of my, I won't say push, but nudging and support over the last couple of years is trying to help our head coaches figure out their own identity, right? Because we all come from
Mm-hmm.
a tree, right? And
Yep.
we have these influences, and somehow there's a attachment to what we think we have to do versus no, you have to be authentic to yourself, right? And that might look completely different than what you cut your teeth on. How are you navigating
Yep.
that piece? What do you think coming in? Where are you at now? Where do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. You had so much success here as a player, and you coming back as an alum with similar fan base and then being super excited. I think in my mind, what they want to see and what you have known to work here is one thing. And then I think I quickly realized as I spun around and looked at a blank board of players is how can I know what I'm going to run before I know who I have? So that was the first realization is like filling the roster. Obviously, you're bringing in CB from a different coaching tree, and we're bouncing ideas and playing with what I think and what happens. And then I think where we ended up was let's fill the roster, let's see exactly what we get, and then let's try to build something that makes sense for this group, as opposed to we're going to run this and make them figure it out. So that's where we've landed. So somewhat in between of what I thought it would be and what you ended up with and what you think is going to work
How did that
best.
impact your recruiting? Because most of the time, let's say at U of M, and I would even go back to say at SSU for sure, and I don't know much about the Academy of Arts situation, but you're recruiting to system for the most part.
Yep.
Years ago, stuff's changed. But like,
Yeah.
how would you say that you attack that when you don't know what you're trying to do, so you don't know what you're looking for? What did that do to the center of your recruiting? What were you looking for then?
I think the biggest focus was like, okay, we're essentially starting from scratch, which there was power in as well. As I just went, as simple as it sounds, we have to fill positions. So I need the two most talented point guards we can find, and then we just kept sliding. And I think the point guard was my first spot, which maybe I'm just like will always be biased to that spot because that was me, and I have a huge respect and trust in that position as far as like how important it is to a program. You're on the floor, you're leading our guys. They have to look at you a certain way for a team to be successful. And then we flipped to the other side of the board, and it was like we have to get bigs. So those were like the two starting points of like point guards, guys with size, and then we fit everything in the middle in as it came. But we were lucky. How I looked at the portal 5 months ago compared to how I look at it today is day and night because it just saved my butt in where I was at and getting a job so late with no roster. Obviously, I still think there's major issues in what's going on and how we're going about it and how it's changed college basketball as a whole. But yeah, like I said, it was basically like, let's get the most talented guys available who I enjoyed talking to on the phone in the recruiting process, who we're hearing good things about. And then we just built it by position.
And how has that impacted the roster? Is everybody transferred? Do you have any freshmen? Is this kind of a fixed for now, or is that going to become the philosophy? Like, where are you? I know it's early, and we'll talk in
Yeah.
a couple years, but like, where are you right now based on that experience as you lay out not just the next 9 months, but the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
So I will always believe in recruiting freshmen and building for the future while trying to win now. Obviously, you want to get talented enough freshmen that you feel like they could possibly get some time in that first year. I think early on, I don't have the kind of benefit of the old school Chico, where it's like you're going to come here, you're going to redshirt, and that's how it just doesn't work like that in today's game. But we ended up with, like I said, 2 returners, 3 freshmen, and then the rest are transfers. So we got 14 total guys. I think we have 4 seniors right now, and obviously that's up for debate too. They're going to vote on a rule in January that Division II may transition to 5 years eligibility in 10 semesters. So a lot of it is still up in the air, but yeah, I like where we're at. I really like our guys. For the timing of when we got it, I've been telling everyone these are guys I would have recruited in any year. So I feel pretty fortunate on how it worked out.
That's what you want, right? You want the guys that you're not settling for, but that are part of your philosophical makeup regardless. And it sounds like you got those guys. Well, let me pivot here and think about your trajectory over the years of where you've been and who you've learned from and what you've been able to glean from those situations and what you're bringing in. And a lot of this is going to ultimately be on the fly, and some of it's going to be very intentional. And what I've asked, and you've heard this for years, right? It's what's something that you guys do that's so transformational to your culture that you would do it wherever you are. And you're in the infancy of this, so you're already planting some of these seeds. What are a couple of those things that maybe you've brought with you from Montana or Sonoma or Art or back at Humboldt as a player that you've day one, boom, here's where we're at. And because of the belief in it that you can offer other people, just like, hey, low hanging fruit, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I think you hear the saying that kind of teams take on the personality and outlook of their coach. I think that's been my biggest thing in these initial weeks that school has started and guys have got to campus is they are very clear and understanding of how much I care about this place as a former player, as someone who lived in this community for 9 years, the whole deal. So I think our biggest push early has been them embracing what Humboldt County is, what Arcata, California is. You walk across campus and our guys laugh, and it's very different than the places they come from. And I was like, there's 2 ways to go about it. You look at it and you go, there's weirdos everywhere, or you go, this is what makes this place special, and you embrace it. And if you do, the latter of those two, your experience here is going to be incredible and change your life. So that has been our biggest push as far as embrace where you're at, be where your feet are. These people are going to treat you amazing. You guys are going to be celebrities. They know who you are in town, and you guys haven't done anything yet. Made a basket, played a game, the whole nine. So that's been the biggest push. As far as who you've worked for, I think it's been a blessing in my career to work for guys that have had success, but also were in different parts of their coaching career. Pascaldo was on the tail end of his career at Sonoma and had been there for 20-some years. He worked for Waterman Academy of Art, who's a first-time head coach. And then obviously Travis is somewhere in between as far as having so much success at Montana in his first head coaching gig at the Division I level. But you also learn from him as someone that's coaching at their alma mater. And like the balance of keeping tradition versus moving with the times and staying true to yourself. And yeah, I've been super fortunate and really get to still lean on those guys in times of need and can reach out and ask any questions, which has been super helpful in the transition.
Is there anything organizationally that you have already implemented that was a shift from the outgoing group, or maybe you don't even know what they did, but like was something that you brought in intentionally? I mean, talking about, hey, embrace where we're at, it's one thing, but what about like specific drilling down on some patterns and protocols or things that are important to how you guys carry yourselves day to day? Anything like that you can offer?
I think we've been made a major push on involvement. Like we were at the volleyball game last night as an entire team, and we're gonna continue to do stuff. I don't know if the previous coach did or did not do that, but we are going to be seen. We're going to be supportive because we want that same love back on the back end is one thing. And then at Montana, we had the round ball club, which is like a booster club engagement. We met with them once a month, had a presentation, had dinner, let them ask questions with the staff, meet with players, etc. That is something I am bringing back to Humboldt that I know Coach Wood had called it Hoopsters. And I think that's one of the first things on my list is getting the community bought back in. I think with the shift of the name, with the multiple changing of head coaches, with the in and out of ADs and presidents, and obviously the loss of football, the community has been less bought in than they were to this place, providing some familiarity and a face that they know and making them feel involved and having a voice has been super important as well.
I'd forgotten about that they eliminated football, and Humboldt was one of the last holdouts, right, at the Division II
Yep.
level in California, keeping football alive. And you mentioned that it's had an impact. Talk a little bit about what both the name change and not having football and how that you walking back onto campus, what you've noticed, what you've seen, and what opportunities maybe exist that people aren't seeing because they're still boohooing about the past.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the first thing that jumps out with eliminating football and that presence not being on campus is I think it's been a major hit to our diversity on campus. Obviously, you had 100 roster spots and guys from all different realms. So campus looks a little different. I think it was a uniting factor that on Saturdays, on home games, you were going to tailgate, you're going to go to the game. Redwood Bowl was going to be sold out, and they were good. They were winning. I'm pretty sure Alex Kappa was on the last team here, and he ended up being a third round draft pick and winning the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, and he's playing for the Las Vegas Raiders now. So you had successful alumni, you had winning seasons, and like I said, I think it was a big uniter for the community. There also was some fundraising that happened, which was supposed to extend it another season, and that did not happen. So yeah, it's a really sensitive subject. If you follow our social media pages or anything, every post there is someone commenting bring back football on it, no matter what it has to do with. So I don't think they'll ever let it go. Obviously, it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth on how it was handled. But like you said, you just want to give them an opportunity to come back and have something that unites the community and they can get behind. And hopefully we can be that team for them.
And how does the name change impact the university? My kindergarten understanding of it was there's an influx of cash to become a California Polytechnic University that
Yep.
was intended to upgrade some programs and do some other things. But right, you've been gone for a while and now you're back. Have you been able to notice anything that's transformationally different, or is it a giant pump fake?
No, definitely not a pump fake. They're building a huge engineering building right in the middle of campus right now. Obviously, they just finished a new campus dorm that opened this fall across the freeway. So there's obviously some money coming in. They're building, they're growing. I think it's good for the university as far as adding majors. Hopefully, we continue to get more students and grow in that area. But I think your love connection to the place you went to and played for and what it was called and how it was represented will always be that. Guys that went to Humboldt State and played at Humboldt State are always going to say, I'm not going to call it Cal Poly Humboldt and I'm not going to buy into the change. And I get it. But like I said, I think it's for the greater good. And hopefully we can bring a lot of that back.
Yeah, it's interesting institutionally you have that, right? So here, people that grew up in my era, this is affectionately known as RLS, and 2000 to 2015 calls the place Stevenson, and it's, hey, pick one, not the other. There's this kind of, you have different generations that are attached to your institution based on something as simple as a name, but it matters.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so how do you embrace this change and run it out there as we're not necessarily turning our back on our roots? This is an evolution.
Yeah.
And how do you sell that particular piece is always an interesting challenge.
Yeah, it is. And I think the more you get alumni involved and get them up here and in front of the team and you force that interaction, I think things like the name become second fiddle and so unimportant that you remember how you felt here and what happened and like you said, how you were treated when you were in these guys' shoes. That's our plan. We have a big alumni event coming up in November. So hopefully we get a good turnout and like I said, we can gain some momentum and get this thing back to where it should be.
Yeah. So going back to your previous stops, right? You had programs outside of basketball at each of those spots that were highly successful. And I'm curious if you were able to take advantage of that while you were there by spending time with those programs. So like when I talked to Rich, he introduced me to Amiria, who was the soccer coach at Sonoma
Yep.
State, because he had spent time with her watching that. Right now, you've got all these stops, and I know football is super successful at Montana, but I'm not quite sure with these other programs what are the standout sports and whether you've been able to integrate yourself with them and steal from them over the years. But I'd love to hear some stories where you've been able to widen the filter, so to speak, as you try to grow as a coach.
Yeah, I think talking about the most recent spot at Montana, football was incredibly successful. And you're around Bobby, the head coach, and watching and seeing how he does things. And he's a Montana local. He is all about toughness and preparation, and they're going to do it a certain way and his way. I mean, you see it, and then you look on the flip side. Women's soccer at Montana is incredibly successful. I honestly believe Chris is probably the best head coach on campus. Year in, year out, the expectation and the result has been championships, and you watch how he does it, and it's the total opposite of Bobby as far as he's bringing in life coaches to coach him and his staff. Everything is based on the individual. Everything is tracked and super analytical. Like I said, every year they're just so successful. So I think, as like you said, as you widen the scope, you just learn there's so many different ways to go about it. You don't necessarily have to be this hard nosed or this acceptive, easy on your kids. I think it's more just like it being about the individual. And I think the foundation in all of those programs, because Trav's been successful, Bobby's been successful, Chris has been successful, is the preparation that goes into it. I think none of those head coaches ever cheat their kids in how much they are putting into it to make sure they're getting their best, whether that's a practice plan, whether that's game day, whether that's recruiting. All of it comes back to preparation and how much you're putting into it.
So, how would you describe what that looks like at an elite level versus what that looks like at a level seven or below, having been exposed to it across the spectrum? And where are some things that you can be specific in that you are the separator between being a 10 and being a six?
Yeah, I think a lot of this deal is kids are hard, right? Like they're looking at how you move, what you say, what you do, how it works. I think one of my early frustrations here is you got guys so late and there's an entire process to go through to get them cleared to be able to work out, whether that be insurance or the right sickle cell test or an outdated physical. There's a number of things that can keep them from being able to work out. So it was hard to build a schedule when you were by the minute, he's in, he's out, he's in. So I think at an elite level, the players always know you're ready to go, you have a plan, you're sticking to it, and it makes sense. There's like continuity to our day to day and our week. I also think the communication between head coach and assistant coaches is huge as we talk about that preparation, how it looks. Obviously, we're meeting beforehand, we're discussing how we want things done, we're on the same page about how we're teaching things. I think when you get into that level of seven or below, we're in a breakdown drill, and one coach is telling you to do it this way, and I'm on the other end coaching guys, telling them to do it that way. And when it comes together, it doesn't gel and mix. And now the players are looking at both of you guys like, what is going on? And whether that be like, okay, I'm gonna listen to him because he's the head coach, or I'm gonna listen to him because I like the assistant coach more. The less that can happen, the better off we're gonna be. And obviously, those are huge things. I think confusion and doubt and hesitation are horrible things in sports. I want my guys to be able to get out there and let it rip, knowing exactly what we practice, what our principles are, and how we do things. So yeah, those are some things that like jump out. Like at an elite level, we are able to be on separate sides of the court, come together, and it all fits exactly how it's supposed to.
So, how do you eliminate that, right? How do you let them play with that type of freedom without creating doubt and second guessing and those things? Because it's not as simple as that drill and my drill mesh,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So, talk about what you've learned that works and what you've learned the hard way that doesn't work.
I think there's always a balance, right? Because you get guys that are so talented, and obviously in basketball, a lot of times that means their ability to put the ball in the basket. And usually when you're elite at that, you are not very good at something else if you're playing at our level. So my big word and what I really believe in, as I've seen at Montana and all my stops, and then obviously coming here, I'm a strong believer in intent. So if your intent is right, and that means what you are trying to do is the result of our team being in the best position and winning games more than your personal goals, I think it works. You can let the guys rip. If I know at the end of the day, I got 5 guys on the court that care about us having 1 more point than the opponent, I feel like the freedom they get will work itself out. Now, I've seen teams that have incredible talent, and this is a pit stop for them because they're at D2 and they want to go D1, and their intent is to score 17 a game because they believe that's what's going to get them recruited to their next stop. And I feel like those guys have to have so much more structure and guardrails because, again, the intent is off on what we're trying to get done. So I preach it all the time. I think team success breeds individual success. Obviously, our guys have goals to play overseas or to be all conference, and some of them probably have goals to move up to a higher level. And I just continue to preach that none of that is going to happen if we don't win games. So intent is the biggest thing that enables me to trust them and give them the freedom to just, like I said, let it rip.
And how have you found the ability, or you've seen it, to carve out very specific role definition that allows those kids to thrive within that intent? Because you mentioned a few minutes ago that the confusion is what creates problems, right? So how
Yep.
do you set the tone and the message with your kids that no, you don't get to do this, you get to do this, without them feeling restricted? Or hell, maybe they do feel restricted, but I think
Yeah.
one of the most underutilized tools at our disposal is clear, concise role definition.
I think it's clear conversation, it's film, and then it's the basis that this team is a puzzle. So you may be a pretty good shooter, but we have a couple guys on our team that are great shooters. So it's like you are going to have to make the extra pass to that great shooter and give up your good shot, or it's not going to work how it works. You may be a horrible ball handler and a great shooter. Stop dribbling the ball and be a receiver. So it's really getting them to understand that they are an important piece of the puzzle, and I don't need them to work on their weaknesses in the game. We're going to obviously, in individuals in practice, we're going to constantly try to sharpen your toolbox and get you better at the things you're not good at. But you are on this team to really shine in this area. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that me focusing on the area I'm good at enables other people to do the same thing. And that's when it comes together and you have special success. So I'm not going at you by saying not to do this. I'm just telling you that you're really good at this, and this is what puts our team in the best position to be successful, because you sticking to this allows player B, who's only really good at this, to be successful as well. And when you guys cross over and try to do each other's specialties, it does not work.
Yeah, but every single kid you coach, for the most part, and I'm exaggerating for effect because I don't really believe there's an every or a never, thinks they're capable of things that you and I both know they're not.
Yep.
So, how do you get that buy-in, get them to come alongside of the program? Because part of the issue with the transfer portal is people thinking that they're getting shortchanged or there's another
Yeah.
opportunity somewhere else to showcase what they're capable of. And so I know you have it figured out. I have it figured out, but what's the secret sauce for people that are out there, right? What's the step by step of, hey, listen, let's just war game this thing right here. You got this and this. These are the conversations specifically, the detail that I'm having them.
It's funny, because that's a worry in bringing in so many new guys in this initial year. We've put together some baseline drills that can be tracked and that go up in the locker room for everyone to see. So every kid thinks they can shoot and they're going to work on their shot and they're going to be a good shooter. So 2 of the ones we've done, we call it personal best, which you took from Montana. You get 4 spots from the 3-point line. You're making 10 at each spot. You're tracking the total shots it takes to make your 40 threes. The second one, which is my favorite, is 5-minute shooting. As a shooter, you pick your specific spot. You're shooting standstill catch and shoots at 5 minutes at that spot. And the baseline minimum, if you're a guy, I tell them, if you're a guy that's going to shoot threes in the game, you should make at least 50 of these. So it's funny, you have guys come in and, like you said, everyone thinks they're talented and they can do it. There's drastic difference in guy scores. And I think it's like really eye-opening. So it's okay. We have Drew Ardwan, played at USF last year, really good junior college player. He went 40 for 42 on his spots, and he got 74 in his 5-minute shooting. My freshman, it took you 81 shots to make your 40 shots, and you got 37 in 5 minutes. So again, when I come to you and I go, if Drew's open, where should the ball go? You guys did the same exact drills. You saw it in person. And it's funny because in the moment, even these guys that have the utmost confidence, they cheer for their teammates, especially in drill. There's no one not playing. It's his turn to shoot. I'm rebounding. And you watch how excited they get as he rattles off 28 in a row. And I bring them in and I go, remember that feeling and how you, like, why are you cheering so hard for Drew? And they're like, bro, I've never seen someone make that many shots in a row. And I go, I'm glad you say that, because when he's open, the ball better go to him. You better pass it and you better pass. So you try to put them in positions where they have the realizations and it's not in a 5-on-5 game setting. And we also do the Celtic drill. So into practice after the workout, I put 3 minutes on the clock and you're just going down and backs. Every touch is a point for 3 minutes straight. So all these guys, you
like straight running, like
straight running. You're going
down
back for 3 minutes
straight.
Side
court, full court.
Full court.
Okay.
You can get a half and a 3/4.
Okay.
So your last rep, you get past half court, I'll give you the half. You get to the free throw line, I'll give you 3/4. So we're watching these guys run, and you got a guy that's going to tell you he wants to play 40 minutes a game, and he goes out there and he gets 21 in 3 minutes. Where I'm like, your teammate just got 29. You're not even in the shape you think you are in to do what you want to do. So I try to give them these eye-opening realizations in small drills to tie into the big picture. But it's always a work in progress. It's constant conversation. But I think the basis is my guys know I care about them. They know I love them. We're going to joke. I'm going to be there if you need things. You're going to help them with all the transitions of living with themselves, with school and life and all the things. But then they also know that the most important thing to me in the broader group is winning. So I'm never going to do anything. It's not about you. It's about us. I'm going to make sure I'm putting us in the best position to win. And I think the better the relationship is and the trust is, the more these conversations hit home. And you're still going to have multiple of them, but the success rate is probably a little higher when the guys feel like you really care about them. So that's something you're constantly working on and hammering in with the new group.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the fact that you set these standards that they have to meet that just shows them where they're at. And for the listeners and myself, what is a number on the Celtic drill that you think is the baseline minimum? What do each of those numbers translate to in real games?
If you're a guard in the Celtic drill and you're going to tell me you're in game shape, I feel like you should get your minimum should be 25 or 26.
Okay.
And it's funny to watch the different philosophies of the guys doing the drill. Some guys just burn it from the beginning and they have nothing at the end. Some guys pace themselves and try to really get going at the end. And there's guys where you're like, okay, he had nothing left. You probably had more in the tank than you thought. And the numbers fluctuate too when you're doing it by yourself versus with a teammate, because some guys have a pacer. But yeah, if you're a guard, wing, 25, 26 is a minimum. And even as a big, I mean, you should 22, 23 would be the lowest. And I would say we need to get you up to that 25, 26. We've had a guy hit 30. We've had a couple wings hit 28, 27 and a half. I point to them and you look at their bodies and I go, yeah, there's a gap between the shape they're in right now and the shape you're in. You better close it if you want to really be able to compete. So yeah, a lot of it like works itself out, the food chain per se.
And on the two shooting drills, just for people that want to try to steal these, the personal best, 4 spots. So I'm assuming corner slot-ish.
So we've rotated them. The first one we went wing, slot, wing. The second week we went corners and slots, and we'll continue to move them around.
And 2 ball, 3 guys shooting.
So you're going all the way through. 2 balls, you got a rebounder and a passer. Your passer's counting your makes. Your rebounder's counting your total shots. In 5 minutes shooting, it's 1 rebounder and 1 basketball.
Okay.
So it's
matter.
Funny. And also how hard I'm rebounding and what type of pass I'm throwing you matters.
That's right.
So we're constantly coaching the rebounder on how hard you're going because you're trying to get them a good score as well. So kind of it pushes you to have some selflessness, and it's not my score, but I'm sprinting on a long rebound and make sure he gets the ball back to get an extra shot.
Are you building this into practice or is this individual workout stuff?
We're doing them individuals, but as we got the group together, which we've been leaning heavier to group stuff with the new group, we're just starting with the shooting stuff. We'll warm up. They are lifting probably an hour and a half before practice. Come in, I tell them, get with a partner, get some shots up, and I'm going straight into those drills.
Okay.
So my thing has been like, if the gym is available and you don't have class, you should be ready to practice when practice starts, because it's so tight with us, women's volleyball, women's basketball, going back to back, that I don't have time to watch you do karaoke's for 25 minutes. So
no doubt. All right, let me go back to this last thing that you said. It's not about you, it's about us. And I want to make a counter to that, because I think that the more you can also meet the individuals where they are, the more they're going to subscribe to the it's about us, right? And I think it's a balance, as you mentioned, right? But a lot of times those individuals want to be seen for who they are. And sometimes you run the risk, when everything is about us, you neglect to acknowledge and honor the individuals that are within the group. How do you navigate that?
I've been challenging them to, how do you stand out without scoring? Like, when, as an individual, when someone comes to the game, if they leave there and they go, wow, that number 15 was my favorite player on the Jacks, why is that? And is it only on the days that you made 6 3-pointers? Or are you giving anything else to the game that is inspiring to the people that watch you? And I think I'm a perfect example to our guys, because like I said, I'm 5'5.5", and I'm a horrible shooter. So I was able to identify that and still remain confident as a player and feel like I could impact the game without taking a bunch of shots. I would say in my career, I took 0 field goal attempts, just as much as games where I shot the ball. But I was going to guard my man. I was going to be in the right spots in team defense. I was going to rebound. I was going to run our stuff, and I was going to get to the ball to guys that shot higher in those 75-minute shootings than what would have been 32 or 33 for my fight. So I think you just get them to understand there's more ways to stand out than just being the guy that puts the ball in the basket. How hard you play may be inspiring. They might show up and go, I know no matter what, that guy is emptying his tank. And, the guys you get to buy into that and realize that's real. Like I said, I think your ceiling as a program and a team goes up. But I tell them that's why I have the job. The reason I'm the head coach at Humboldt is because if you ask anyone in this community that watched me play when I was a player, it was very easy for them to see I was emptying my tank, and my intent was for the Jacks to win the game that night, and I didn't really care what I did individually in between.
You've mentioned this a couple of times. I'm a horrible shooter, and it's not like you've ever been afraid of work. What do you attribute that to in regards to, I got X number of years in the game. My playing career just ended when I tore my Achilles the other day, and I still haven't figured out how to shoot at a high level. And as you think about being a coach and growing people's skill sets, what do you attribute that to? Did you finally just get to the point where I'm not spending any more time on this? It's not worth the return on investment, or it just didn't click? Give me your thoughts.
It's all mental. It's all mental and confidence. I had the benefit of being a really good ball handler and being really fast. So when that doubt crept in, I was able to get away with it because I can go by you and create an advantage, and no one wants to give up a layup, even though I'm not going to shoot it most times. So there's someone to pass to. But I'm a 10 times better shooter today than I was in my playing career, and I don't ever practice shooting. There's a confidence and a lack of pressure you're putting on yourself, and care, and a freedom when I'm letting the ball go that makes it go in at a much higher rate. So as a coach, I try to make sure I am never contributing to the doubt or lack of confidence. And when you do see that in guys, you address it. I'm like, man, you get up every morning and you shoot on the gun and you make shots when you're open and your release looks good. Like, why are you putting so much pressure on yourself based on the result of one shot? And I look back on it and you're like, man, you were a huge dummy, because you're a baseball guy, and if you get on base or you get a hit 3 times out of 10, you're like a Hall of Famer. So you would have thought that would have translated into, oh man, I got to make 35% of my threes and you're fine. But it just didn't. And everyone's mental makeup and how they process things is different. But you see it with guys that, like, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with your shot. You just are way too emotional shot to shot that over time affects the results. So yeah, I try not to contribute to that at all. Take the pressure off.
Yeah, and there's a certain aspect of having irrational confidence when you are in those spaces that helps you tune out that noise. And there's also rational confidence because you put the work in, right? And I think that
Yep,
you can't have one without the other.
100%,
And the
100%.
ones that do have one without the other, they're not helping you win games. Uh,
No,
all right.
they're off a little bit.
Yeah, let's wrap up with this. Always the closer, right? What's something you've recently changed your mind on? And it doesn't have to be basketball related. Given the climate we live in today and the polarization of echo chambers and people almost being criticized and outcast for challenging their belief system, I think it's a big part of who we are as people and how we're trying to get better and move the needle. What's something where you've purposefully changed your opinion? I used to believe this and now I'm over here, and here's why.
It's hard because the easy answer would be the portal because it just benefited me in recent time, but there's still some bases of it that I disagree with, and some parts of it that I do understand the freedom of movement and stuff on. But to be honest, I think the biggest change for me is just what coaching is about. I think initially my belief was like I love the game and I played it for this long and I was good enough to have success and play at this level, and it was about X's and O's and how many games I'm gonna win and all that things, and you realize like none of that really matters. It's about the people and the relationships and the learning, and on both sides. I figure this year my players are gonna teach me a lot about myself and my coaching style and as much as I'm going to be able to do for them. Yeah, I think my biggest change is just what this game is really about and the purpose of it. Like I said, I won 3 championships. I played in 4 NCAA tournaments as a player here. And if you ask me to stack that up against my friendships with Tyler Brown and Kyle Baxter and Ernie Spada and Brandon Sperling and the guys you played with, I would not win those games to still have those relationships. And in the moment, you don't even think about that. But you're 35 years old and you have a group chat with guys that you played with 15 years ago and you speak to them daily, weekly. I mean, you just realize that's what this deal is really about. So,
I have to ask a follow-up. Do you feel that sometimes when you are so focused isn't the right word, but beholden to the outcomes, that sometimes that blinds you to what's really important? And how do you turn that off at times? If you're at, let's say, Duke, and like all that matters is that you guys are national championship competitors, right? Are you missing something in regards to what you just said?
oh, 100%. And I constantly talk to our guys about it. Jay Flores, who I worked with at Montana, who was one of my biggest enemies in my playing career because he played at Chico and I played at Humboldt. And you watch that come full circle from I hated Jay. And Jay's one of the best people I've ever met in my life as far as a human being. But all I'm seeing is the color on the jersey, and he's in my way of the outcome we're talking about. Then you work with Jay, and that'll be a lifelong friend and relationship that's so special to me. I got a letter from, actually, it's right here. I got a letter from Jay in the mail 2 days ago.
He was
Letter,
just
and
down here like 3 weeks ago. Just called me up
yep,
and came by.
yep. He sent me a $25 check, and we talked about our time working together. And I hope you use this check to take a guy out to lunch and tell him about what I did to you in 2011 and 2012. But yeah, it's like you will never realize like how much bigger the game is than the wins and losses until you get older. But I think the more you get the guys to believe that there's another side to it, I think their experience is just so special. The weddings, the kids being delivered, the Nolan and it's Uncle DJ, and I've never even lived in the same city as Nolan. But our relationship is so strong with his dad and my teammate that you guys have a bond. So that's what it's about. And I will hammer that message home to these guys until I can't talk, but they'll realize one day looking back that you were right. And I think that's all that matters. That's the biggest goal.
It's a great place to end, man. I appreciate you jumping on. And we are 8 hours away, but close as always. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, and I appreciate you climbing, man.